Well, good morning and welcome to the March 22nd, 2012 meeting of the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board. We will call the meeting to order and ask for the first item of business. You've been furnished with copies of the minutes of the February 23rd meeting. Are there additions or corrections to the minutes? Shall we approve them?
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the February 23rd meeting of the Citizens Advisory Board. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. Item 3 on the agenda is the Revenue and Expenditure Report. Eric, are you going to present that for us?
Yeah, I'd be glad to this morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have the report for your consideration today. It is the period ending January 31st, 2012. It's using the same format that we've shown the advisory board in the past. You'll notice that there's $161 million collected to date. That does include interest as well. We've gone ahead and continued to show the percent of target that we have been over. You'll see for the current month it's about 5.7%. That'd be through January, and for the fiscal year 2.9. And so again, we continue to trend above where our projections were, so that's all good news. You'll see the majority of the expenses at this point have been in the park project, and that would be on the land acquisition, and so we have a report that we'll share later in the agenda to show the status of that, and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Well, with our the Citizens Advisory Board CFO, Michael Adams, who always has a question about this for us. Anyone want to step up to take Michael's place this morning? Any questions? If not, we will deem that report received and move then to, and I might say this, Michael may be a victim. I should report at the beginning here that all those reports that the President would be attending our meeting were premature. President Obama is on his way out to Tinker and is not coming to our meeting, contrary to our invitation. So let's move to item 4 then. The resolutions. Eric, you want to describe those for us?
Yes, I'd be happy to. We do have 2 items that are included in this section of your agenda. We have the project requirements for the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds project. We also have the project requirements for the Senior Health and Wellness Centers. As a summary of both of these, and we're going to continue to have these come to us each month, these are those documents that we're putting together after the input sessions with the subcommittees, after we're engaging ADG as our consultant to help us put together what we call the programming portion of the project. This helps us gather all that information that we know to date so that when we hire those architects and those engineers, we're able to provide them a comprehensive document that allows us to move forward. So I wanted to invite Mike up this morning just for a few minutes and have him share with us some of the additions and changes and just summarize the documents for your consideration today.
Thank you, Eric. Mr. Chairman, board members, glad to be here. I'm not going to give you a long presentation. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about these project requirements. I think you've had them for a little while. My goal is to just remind you what the nature of this document is and the uses that it will have, expand a little bit on what Eric just talked about. Project requirements documents are something that have been done in other MAPS projects, MAPS for Kids projects. They provide a basic guideline for the architect or the engineer who is actually engaged to design a specific project. There are project requirements documents for virtually all of the MAPS 3 projects. Some of those have not been completed yet. Some of those are still in the process of being prepared. These are 2 that have been prepared, have received comments by the subcommittees, by city staff. We have consultants that we use to help us prepare these documents. We talk to other stakeholders in the city who have an interest in specific projects to make sure that their comments are incorporated. Most of what's in here is not mandated. As I said, it's here as a guideline. One of the exceptions that you'll see at some point with the sidewalks and trails, the city does have minimum standards, which we have incorporated in those documents to make sure that city standards are met in terms of ongoing maintenance and those kinds of things. But, you know, the fairgrounds document is not a significant or a substantial document because it's related to site work and parking. The people who are going to be engaged to do that design work understand a lot of the city requirements, so that's not a significant document. Wellness is a much larger document. We spent a lot of time with our consultant and with other people to make sure that we covered all of the things that we think we've heard need to be included or are desired to be included in those wellness centers as part of that document, and that's why it's a little bit longer document. They're all going to be of varying lengths as we do them, depending on the nature of the project. But so it's a document not only for the architects and engineers, but as was pointed out in one of the committee meetings yesterday, it really provides a kind of a guide and a roadmap for the subcommittee to be able to answer questions, or for the city staff to be able to answer questions about what's coming with respect to an individual project. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have, suggestions about the documents as well.
If I might comment, certainly you can tell there's a great deal of work that went into both of them, but I am absolutely amazed with the Senior Health and Wellness Center. It is a lengthy report, but it's so comprehensive. You know, over a year ago, we sat at this horseshoe and talked about the fact that we had no idea what a Senior Health and Wellness Center would look like in Oklahoma City. We'd never built one. And after reading the requirements that have been put together, it's going to be amazing, and now we can visualize it. Job well done.
Thank you very much.
About the fairgrounds project that you'd want us to consider? And Michael, about the senior wellness? Well, we have before us then the recommended resolution. They've been included in your packet. Should we do them separately?
I would do them separately.
Okay, so we're going to then deal with each one separately. Mike, thanks for your comments. The first one is a resolution approving the MAPS 3 State Fairgrounds Improvement Project requirements, which are included in your packet. Is there a motion? It's been moved that we adopt the resolution. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution is approved. Now moving to the Senior Wellness Center project requirements. Is there a motion to approve that resolution? It's been moved and seconded that we approve that resolution as well. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Thank you. Let's move then to item 5. Eric, you want to introduce that for us?
Item number 5 this morning is the Consultant Review Committee report and resolution authorizing negotiation of a contract with Johnson & Associates for the MAPS 3 Upper Park Engineering Services. As you recall, we sent several RFPs out simultaneously on the park project. Engineering Services, which this one is specific to, is one that's going to assist us in identifying private and public utilities, rights-of-way, easements, and all those things that are hard to find in that upper 40 acres of the park. We're now at that point where we need to start vacating portions of property. We need to start relocating utilities, and so Johnson Associates is primed and ready to go and assist us on that. There were 14 firms that submitted on the original proposal. We did interview 4, and Johnson was the top-performing consultant. And as we've done in the past, we've always included the subcommittee and advisory board members in that selection process. So we've got additional RFPs and recommendations that will be coming following this one. So there's other interviews that are going to be scheduled, but you're going to see a lot of these on upcoming agendas for the MAPS 3 program. So I can answer any questions that you have on the item.
Any questions? All right, well, we have the resolution authorizing the negotiation of this contract with Johnson & Associates, the firm that has scored the highest in the review process. Is there a motion to approve that? Kim has moved to approve that resolution authorizing. Is there a second? It's been seconded. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 6, Eric.
Item 6 is a resolution, again, pertaining to the park project. It's in response to the Skydance Bridge. And I think many of us have seen that, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to travel the new Interstate 40 and actually witness it firsthand. But later in April, we're actually going to finish the work on the Skydance Bridge. The permanent lighting is going to be installed. There's different opportunities that are going to be coming available. But at this point, we also have not performed any work in the park. And so there is some connectivity that we'd like to make on a temporary basis to the Skydance Bridge, allowing those patrons from the downtown area to be able to access the north side of the bridge, cross the bridge, and then go south towards the river. So this was an item that we took before the Park Subcommittee. And as a part of the park project and making it accessible and available, staff's put together a cost estimate that's approximately $235,000. This would be to build sidewalks that would be ADA accessible, basically through the parks, both the upper and the lower, providing that access across the Skydance Bridge. As we look at, and I say the word temporary, obviously we're still a number of years away before we actually have construction in the upper park. When we look at the lower park, we're not looking to even acquire property until after 2014. That was one of those agreements that we had with a lot of the local businesses. So I do believe these sidewalks are going to be in for quite a length of time before we actually have the park's improvements completed, and we'll look at more permanent trail-type systems and things through the park as a part of that overall design. So today we're bringing forward to you a recommendation to authorize the expenditure of up to $235,000. We're going to use city annual contracts. These are unit price contracts that pay for materials placed in the field, and with your recommendation, we'll forward that to the City Council.
Thank you. Kim, any comments from the Park Committee on that?
I think this is something that we did discuss in our Parks Subcommittee yesterday, and certainly a topic that actually Michael Dover brought up back in October, that we wanted to make sure that that was not a bridge to nowhere, that there was accessibility to and from it. I think this is going to also be an excellent opportunity to observe the usage of those sidewalks and give us a little more idea into what becomes part of the park in that area. And I would highly recommend that we move this motion forward.
Okay.
You do also have a revised memo that's in your packet today. Unfortunately, this week the Park Subcommittee did not have a quorum. The original memo that was distributed had a statement that the subcommittee reviewed and recommended, but we've revised the memo today for your consideration, and that's the only change that we've made. There was a discussion, as Kim mentioned, and we're bringing that forward to you as the advisory board today to go ahead and take that on to City Council.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 7. Eric?
Item 7 is quite exciting. This is going to be one of the first acquisitions for the river project, and if you reviewed your package, you'll notice that this is the addendum number 1 in the award of contract that includes a couple of the alternates for the Oklahoma River Racecourse starting system. So if you look back at some of the work that the river projects have done, there's a series of projects and enhancements for the Oklahoma River. This is one of those. And as I summarize this, we did advertise to all potential vendors, but we did, however, only receive one response, and that's included in your packet today. The cost of the system that they have proposed is one that is less than the estimated cost with both alternates that we're recommending. Total cost is $283,334. This actually installs 2 9-lane automatic starting systems. And so these are floating starting systems. And I think the best way that I could describe that is many of us have seen maybe a BMX-style bike race or a motorcycle-type starting gate. This is something that holds those boats steady in the water, and there's a pneumatic lowering gate that then starts them all at the same time. So this is part of a lot of the competitive racing requirements for the short course events, just to make sure that they're fair, and of course it's Olympic grade quality. So what we have before you today is a recommendation to recommend that contract move forward. I do believe there's a little bit of work left to do on that contract, but we will make sure that all the final arrangements have been put into place before we forward that on to City Council.
I would just add a footnote that this enables them to have some Olympic trials and some high-level competitive races sooner than they would have otherwise had them, and those have already been planned and have been awarded. So this will be a real step forward for them, and we'll see some immediate results from it. Is there a further discussion? Is there a motion to approve the resolution? It's been moved that we approve this resolution. Is there a second? And it's seconded. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted. Okay. Eric, is there anything under item 8 that you have to bring forward this morning?
I don't have anything additional.
All right. Any other? Then we're going to move to item 9, the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board Subcommittee reports. And I'm going to begin and ask Sue if she will supplement my report from the Convention Center Subcommittee there. No formal action today, but there was a discussion yesterday of a consideration of a way to obtain some schematic drawings or to the plan now under the process that the city uses, and on all of these kind of projects, the plan under our timeline is to not award, to not hire architects and engineers, and to not put that out until 2014. Is that right, Eric? And I think the sense of this subcommittee is that they would like to see if there is an available way to break that effort into phases, so that they might have a phase 1 and encumber only enough money to pay for phase 1, and get some schematic drawings that could be used not only by the Convention Center Committee but by other committees who may think that their work depends on the Convention Center size, location, configuration, those being subcommittees like the park and transit. So there is a sense of that. The staff is going to think about the implications of all of that, and I think that it will be an item action at the next meeting of the Convention Center. So no action required today, and it doesn't mean that we're changing necessarily the timeline or the for the Convention Center. It just means, would we hire architects sooner, not changing the timeline for the construction or anything. And that's a different way of doing things than we've done before. So it's a thing that I guess we just want the committee to be thinking about, and we said to our subcommittee that we would bring that to your attention. Sue, anything you want to add to that?
Mike Carrier, who is the president of our Oklahoma Convention and Visitor Bureau, I mean, his job is to go out and encourage people to come here for their conventions. And I know this from a personal point of view because companies that I contract with are right now signing contracts for, at the very earliest, 2018, and more likely 2019, 2020. Well, he can't garner contracts without at least a schematic design. So, I mean, we can tell everybody we're building it and it's paid for, and they love that. But without actually having something that's physical, it's real hard for him to say, don't worry. Because right now, we know this is a great place to come, and a lot of people know that too. But they also know we're going to build a new convention center. And so having something a little more definitive is what the committee is asking for.
Eric, from the staffing standpoint?
You know, I think, and we discussed this at length, during the subcommittee meeting, and there's a difference of opinion on how best to hire architects, and one of the concerns that we sometimes see is that when you hire a consultant too early and if it has too much length of time, it's possible that the design team could potentially change between the time that you do early design and the time that you might do final design. But clearly, Staff heard a lot of the comments, as have already been mentioned this morning, about the need to possibly do some early schematic design studies or some things that would help us better understand how the convention center might lay out on the site. It would be useful for the transit subcommittee, that would be useful for the park subcommittee, and so just as Tom has stated, I think that we're going to look into that seriously over the next month and bring something back, hopefully, very soon.
Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, that's our report from the Convention Center Committee. Kim, did you have a report from the Park Committee that you wanted to present?
Certainly. The Park Subcommittee did meet yesterday, and as previously stated, we did not have a quorum between spring break and travel schedules. It made it a little bit impossible, but we did continue our discussion about park project requirements, and certainly the Park Subcommittee is very anxious about the premise of having a schematic design done earlier in this process rather than is currently slated, just to give us a better idea of our companion project that will be to the north of the park. The other thing that we had discussed were some of the private tours that we've been going on. It's really interesting to stand in the land that is actually going to be our parks and feel a part of it. Now that a lot of the area is cleared off, it really makes a big impact of where we're going to be. We've also discussed some of, certainly all of our purchases have been in the area of the North Park, and we know that our first phase of development will be along the boulevard, but we also feel a compelling responsibility to address some areas in the south area of the park, as it now is bird's eye view from travelers on I-40. So those are some things that we're going to be looking at, some options of what is possible to do so that visitors coming into Oklahoma City, whether it be the 100th time or the very first time, get the best impression that they can.
Any questions? Michael Dover, any report from the Senior Wellness Committee that you want to share with us today, in addition to what the resolution we passed?
Thank you, Tom. Yes, the RFP for the operating partners went out some time ago, and some of you, I think, maybe we've reported this already. We had two responses to the RFP, one from the Oklahoma City County Health Department and the other from the YMCA. The YMCA was proposing to build a wellness center, or for the city to build a wellness center adjacent, or actually on city-owned land in the Earlywine Park area, where there already is a YMCA in South Oklahoma City. The City County Health Department made a proposal to build a wellness center on some land that they've already purchased, some 56 acres some time ago, in their wellness complex over on the kind of where I-40 and I-35 and 44 kind of intersect around Remington. So we met a committee, including Eric and members of the subcommittee, wellness subcommittee, and planning commission, and of course staff, David and Wayne and Eric. And we had two really good presentations by both organizations, and our job going into that meeting was to hopefully come out with a consensus on who we thought would be the best applicant at this time for the first wellness center. As it turned out, both presentations had grave or serious concerns about the operating costs for the wellness center. The primary funding source would be for both membership dues. But when looking at the budgets, operating budgets for these wellness centers, it was very clear and evident that the membership fees, as discussed, would not, frankly, come close to paying for the full operating costs. So both applicants, although they responded to the RFP, did so with those reservations. After the presentations, but they were very good presentations otherwise. After the presentations, the committee met and discussed where we were going to go from there. And the consensus of the committee was that we did not think at that time that either applicant was ready to move forward by their own proposals. And at our wellness committee subcommittee meeting yesterday, when we discuss the issue further at the whole subcommittee, and the executive directors of the Y and City County Health Department were both there. What was positive and encouraging is that they are going to sit down along with the committee that kind of reviewed and interviewed those applicants, and begin to at least try to think of a way that perhaps collectively, or the two organizations together, might be able to figure out a way that we could move closer to a conclusion that they could figure out a way that indeed they could finance the operating costs. So the short answer is we don't have we didn't have a recommendation from the Wellness City Committee to move forward with an applicant at this time, but we're hoping that after City County and the Y sit down together, that perhaps an opportunity will present itself, that they will be able to come forth with a more feasible and fully funded operational budget that they think we can move forward on. So we're not for as long as I think some of us hoped we would be when we started the RFP process, but we're optimistic that hopefully something will happen shortly.
Comment, Eric?
And I share Mr. Dover's comments, and I think we're going to remain optimistic as well from a city's perspective. And I think what we're going to work towards in this next month is a second meeting, and work towards hopefully getting a little bit closer and see where we stand, and obviously come back together with the subcommittee in about a month, and hopefully we can have another report for you in April.
Thank you. I guess the one question I have that maybe all of us would be interested in, we had many more than 2 applicants that attended meetings and thought about it. Do we have any reason to think that the operating costs were also the reason that we didn't have more people bring forward proposals?
I'll give you my take on that. I think by just kind of visiting with some folks, I think that was an issue for some. I think that was not the only reason that some didn't come forth. But I do think that was a serious consideration by some. I think some, quite frankly, wasn't excited about being the first wellness center. They kind of were hoping to kind of come in a little later and see how that first one worked out and learn from that. But I think that probably was part.
And we received several phone calls, and I would tell you from the number of parties that were interested, I think we're looking at those in 2 categories. Those that I think we'd put in a prime category, somebody that would be kind of the one that would take on the charge. But several of the partners, I think, were secondary. They have a service that they want to provide, and I think they want to get together with one of those that might be selected. So we had a lot of response from Metropolitan Library System. We had responses from OU Health Sciences Center. We had responses, just recently I've received a phone call from Pioneer Library Systems and others. And I think they all have different services that they want to bring to the wellness centers, but I don't know that they want to actually chair the organization that's going to operate or run the facility day to day.
Right. Any other questions or thoughts? All right. Sue, you had a meeting of the Trails and Sidewalks Committee. Anything you want to report there?
Well, as far as the sidewalks go, we are moving forward with the master plan, and we have Neighborhood Alliance that is doing a citizen survey for us to, again, garner a few more inputs from citizens on their feelings. And we've got a priority ranking now for a first pass and a second pass on. Once we have input, we look at all of the different maps that different entities had put together. So, and the committee felt comfortable with the ranking order of that. We added a couple lines to that, but we feel good about that. So we're moving forward, and looks like we're going to have some things coming forward maybe by next month on sidewalks. And on trails, we're looking at phase 1 and the trails. And so we had quite a bit of discussion about where that trail might lie in regards to Crystal Lake. And we have several committee members that are part of the trails master plan that's been put in place for Oklahoma City. And so they've been on that committee thought for several years. And so they have helped us guide that discussion through there. So, Zane, anything else you want to add on that? So we have identified a trail that we feel would be best around the lake.
Susan, I have been out to Crystal Lake recently, and that is just an amazing, I don't know how many of us have had the opportunity to go out there lately, but that has been cleaned up in such an incredible way, and I know that the SHINE program out of County Commissioner Brian Mon's office has taken the lead on making that a very, very attractive, and I would encourage if you all, I didn't even know about this little gym, quite frankly, until not too many months ago, and it really is a really nice area. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you. Zane, is there a report from the Transit Modern Streetcar?
Thank you. We met yesterday afternoon. We had a very spirited discussion that resulted in a approval of a measure to adopt recommendations in rebuttal to the limited study corridor shore plan that I believe that we advisory board will be receiving at the April meeting. We also had a spirited discussion about the southern part of the route. As you're aware, earlier the streetcar committee submitted a preferred upper route, and we have now included the southern part of that makes it a complete route now. So that will be coming to the advisory board in April. We also received a number of reports. One was from Jacobs that reported on utility investigations that they're running and how those are going along, and as far as what we might run into when we start laying track in the city. And then we also received a citizen's report from Marion Hutchinson on futuristic right-of-ways for light rail, looking out in the future. While not having a specific impact on the streetcar program, but has the members out there thinking about what things will look like in the future. So.
Thank you. Okay, any questions for Zane? Dee, we've already heard, I guess, something about what's going on at the river and the State Fair. You have anything you want to add to either of those?
Just wanted to add that this helps us with the starting system really get moving, according to Mike Knopp, and that's exciting for us. There's a little concern at our meeting, which was held Tuesday, about the continual rising of the OG&E monies expected for the river project. It started out at $500,000 and now it's up to $650,000. So that was of concern to many of us. But there is going to be a meeting with lots of people involved and see if they can cap that. And I also wanted to say that we have our homework. We have this really great report on the Oklahoma River improvements, which we're all supposed to read thoroughly and turn in our recommendations. So it's a really good comprehensive study of that. So I think we're going to.
I think if I comment on the OG&E, this would be some of the discussion that we've had previously about the cost that it's going to take OG&E to bring service to the race course, and this would be predominantly for the light system. And so, those discussions began almost probably about a year ago when we started initiating the project, and those early estimates have simply started to increase. There's just been a higher cost of materials, some different things and items have changed from OG&E's standpoint, and so that's one of the reasons that the costs have climbed somewhat, but there is a meeting scheduled for us to hopefully finalize that here in the next few weeks. It's not going to slow down the project. Conceptually, we're in agreement, but on the cost side, that is something I think that we just want to make sure that we have all of our questions answered before we bring that forward. It would be a separate agreement. So as you look at the race course lighting system, there have been already recommendations made to complete those plans and send those out to bid. There's a separate OG&E agreement that will come before the subcommittee that we would ask that you send on to the City Council once it's been finalized.
Any questions?
I'd like to make one comment. Eric, and you certainly can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the starting system that we just recently approved will be the first official MAPS project, probably that gets completed, and be the first time we can hang out our sign that says MAPS dollars at work.
I believe you're correct, yes.
Of course, you're going to have to go out in the middle of the river to see it.
Well, should we be thinking about some kind of a little ceremony, Eric, where we ask David to carry out the first starting floater or something? What do you think?
You know, as we get ready to break ground on a lot of these projects, that you can anticipate that we're going to have ceremonies. There's a lot of projects that I would put in a major classification. There's some others that, I mean, there's not that $230,000 is not a lot of money, but there's some that we put in a more minor categorization. We're working on right now construction signs that are using the same MAPS 3 artwork that you've already seen on a lot of your report covers, things that we can actually go out to the river and put some signage in the ground for those visitors to the river corridor to see some of the upcoming work. I mean, it would be a way for us to announce the river racecourse starting system, the lighting project, the whitewater project. But similar signs are anticipated, of course, for the parks, the trails, the sidewalks, when we start getting those locations finalized. And we simply call those construction signs. But we are looking at a lot of events coming in the future as we celebrate some of the successes. We've talked a lot about a lot of the early planning is now coming to that stage of design and construction. And so we are going to be celebrating, and yes, we'll have signage and opportunities for us to meet out on site.
We have come to a point where a question comes to my mind I haven't thought about for the past 2 years. So this is all of us as volunteer citizens are here because we're kind of representing the citizens of the city, and a lot of them ask us a lot of questions about this. So my question is, in addition to just having a celebration, is it a good idea for us to issue a press release that says this is the first project that's being finished, we're making progress? I mean, I think it would help all of us who answer questions about it all the time to our constituents. Is that an option we have?
No, it is, and I would take that for granted. That's something the city would automatically do. So when we look at openings of, say, new libraries, of the Skydance Bridge project, major roadway construction projects and things, you will frequently see press releases coming out of the city. Now, whether the press chooses to put those into print, I mean, is another, but we are advertising, of course, those things on the city's website. So even sometimes when they don't make it to the print or the video media, we'll put those up on okc.gov.
Yeah.
But I think that we'll find a lot of probably positive reception from our press, and I'm sure we'll see many articles in the future. But those will come from press releases from the city's public information office.
Great. Okay. Rusty isn't here to talk about State Fair. Dee, did you have anything you wanted to add about that?
We did not have a meeting this month.
Okay.
Tom, if I may just ask you a question about what you were just discussing.
Yes.
I've noticed, too, that there's a Facebook page for MAPS 3. Is that an official city Facebook page?
It is. The city has a Facebook page that puts certain announcements. We also have a Twitter account for MAPS as well.
Okay.
We're starting to venture into the social media. You'll find similar Facebook and Twitter accounts for Project 180. And the city itself has one as well. So that's all handled, again, by our information office. And so select material is placed up there that we find that the citizens might find informative. So you can monitor those if you're interested in either.
Good.
And also to add to that, on the ribbon cuttings, I believe there is one scheduled for the Skydance Bridge on April 23rd. And so we're really anxious to hopefully have our sidewalks in place and really get to celebrate that day.
Great. Well, I'll offer some comfort to you is that I'm not in charge of the Facebook or the Twitter. So,
But Tom, I can tell you, because I've argued it recently, you can buy Facebook for Dummies and Twitter. I've recently done that.
well, I would be at the head of the line. Okay, we have some informational items. Item 10 on the agenda, Eric.
There are two items for your consideration in the packet. There's actually a supplemental handout, again, on an updated park map. The one that we put in your packet is the one that's located on your screen, but there is one change. If you look on the lower right-hand portion on your handout, the one that is the light blue crosshatch section V22 has now been acquired, and that also relates to the second item is informational. The condemnation case has been completed, and you'll find the resolution authorizing payment for that parcel. So obviously significant progress in the park. I think, just a few short months ago we had a lot of spaces on there that were not those dark shades of blue. And again, dark shades of blue mean that those have been acquired. Medium shades of blue mean they're more or less under contract or offers have been made. And so we've made significant success on that. The upper right-hand portion where you still see some tan areas, that's really our only outstanding area at this point. And one of the reasons is that the center parcel there is an existing ramp off of the abandoned I-40. And so we're going to be working very closely with ODOT in the acquisition of that property. And the adjacent property under there, we're going to begin those discussions as well. But I think this just shows, I mean, we've made considerable success. We're now ready to start all those planning processes for the park, and that's all underway. I don't have anything further. I can answer any questions you have on the informational items.
Any questions about those informational items? Item 11, David, do you have anything you want to add?
And well, let me just add a couple of items. And I think you, as your reports on the subcommittee, really do a great job on what has happened in the last month. And I don't think there's a lot more to add other than just to reinforce, and I'm just going to share a couple of additional comments that weren't included. We talked about the convention center and the push for the schematic design, and that was already mentioned. The park, there really isn't any additional updates. Wellness, we did those updates as well. Transit, there was the route map that was discussed in the subcommittee meeting yesterday, and that is something that we'll bring forward at the next meeting. But ongoing with the transit is also the RFP for the transit consultant that is being issued. Proposals are going to be received here in just a couple of short weeks. And again, we're going to start that process of a lot of the early planning for the transit system. That's a project that again, we're moving very quickly forward on. Fairgrounds, as you know, the Phase 1 improvements are underway and in design. The Phase 2 improvements come very soon thereafter. And in the river, we're doing a lot of the work now. The Whitewater RFP will go out next week. You've got the starting gates that were approved, or at least recommended for approval today, and so considerable progress. So I would just applaud the efforts also of the subcommittee, each of you, as you participated in a lot of the discussion, a lot of the events. And so, again, 2012 is mounting to be a really successful year for us in just the numbers of projects and all the different areas of the city that we should be working on.
Thank you. Any questions for Eric? Well, that brings us to item 12, comments by the board, staff, and citizens. And I want to begin that section with a couple of comments that would be noted by a couple of empty chairs here that create a couple of discussion items that I want you all to think about. Nathaniel, who is not with us today and is the chair of the Transit Subcommittee, has been called to active duty, as perhaps many of you may know, and so he's going to be going overseas, and he's in fact training right now for that endeavor. So he's going to be gone for at least 6 months. He will keep his seat on the Citizens Advisory Board, but one of the things we do need to think about is how we handle the committee that he chaired. Zane is the vice chair of that and is doing a wonderfully good job of stepping in and managing that committee. And I think from talking to city staff that we've got a couple of options. One is we could have someone else from this board, which is what the ordinance I think contemplates, serve as an interim vice chair and have Zane chair the committee and have an interim vice chair, and or on the other hand, Mark tells me that when this happens, and I'm sure it happens all the time in city business, if neither the chair nor the vice chair are there, the committee itself can elect a chair for that meeting. And I just want you all to be thinking about and forward your comments to staff about, and particularly you, Zane, I want you to think about how you think about us going forward with this. If we need to have someone named an interim vice chair, that would be something I think we would need to take to the mayor and the council. None of us have the authority to do that, I don't think. And so if you would forward your comments, particularly, Zane, as you think about the next 6 months of this process. Eric, you want to be heard on that?
Just let staff have the opportunity to visit with you as well. I think we can come up with some solutions, and we'll discuss that in the next few weeks. And we're very receptive of the concerns, and I think there's probably a solution for all of us.
Great. Second thing I want to mention is that Rusty's chair, of course, is empty, and this is the first of for him as well. Rusty has had a change in his career, and he has a job now that will preclude him from being at these meetings, as we currently do. And I met with him, and he is very sensitive to the fact that many schedules are built around what we're doing now. And he understands that for the most part, we're all in a rhythm now about when we meet and when the subcommittees meet and how we get the process forward to the council and all of that. But he does want to continue to serve, and one of the things that would make it possible would be if we changed the schedule, our meeting schedule. And I just say to you that in a process that's going to go on for number of years, we're going to continually have some of these kind of things to think about. So the issue would be, is it feasible for us to change this meeting time, for example, a week earlier? Is it possible for us to change the meeting time from a Thursday in the fourth week to a Friday? In either of those events, he could continue to serve. He is not expecting us to do something that inconveniences everybody else. And so I have talked to the city staff. They're thinking about all the logistical issues that a change would cause that have to do with the availability of this chamber, the other subcommittee meetings. They're thinking about all of the stuff that it would require in their workload, and could we conveniently move the things forward to the council. What I'm asking all of you to think about is your own schedule and whether or not it is possible, either of those things are possible. And if you have comments about it, forward them to the city staff. And as Eric described in the first one, we're going to be thinking about this over the course of the next month, and we'll talk about it more then. But we would invite your comments. I'm very, Rusty has done, and I'd like to say this on the record, he has been a very hard-working, contributing member of this board, and if there is a way that we could accommodate his situation, I'd like to, but not at the expense of everything else. And so, and that's the way he feels about it. So as you get a chance to reflect on this, think about your own schedules. If you would forward your comments to staff, we'll try to get this, bring a solution to both of these problems. And this won't be the end of this. I mean, if we're all together for the next few years, we'll be thinking about these things again. Okay? Now, any other comments by members of the board?
I have a comment. I'd like to formally introduce my councilman, Gary Mars, because I understand that he might not be on this board after today. Are you getting replaced, Mr. Mars? And was that just a normal term, or did you request that?
Yes. Now, as you recall, when it was set up, the council member for the support on this board is a one-year term, and that was intentional so that all the council can rotate through and be involved with the board. Councilman McAtee started it last year and did a year, and I've just finished a year. I understand Councilman Ryan will come on next month and start his year on it. I honestly will miss interacting with this. You all have done a great job. The committees do a lot of work. I'm really impressed with the amount of work that the subcommittees do and the thought process that goes into it. I would just encourage you to keep pushing forward and understand what your role is in producing what the citizens voted on and so forth. And I'm sure you'll do a great job with it. I'm looking forward to receiving the reports up on the council level that has been produced out of here. I'll kind of miss dogging Mr. Mize on a monthly basis, but I'm sure I'll still see him around from time to time. But I have enjoyed it, and I appreciate the work that you all have done over the year.
We appreciate you and your time. It's really been great to be at a committee meeting and see you there, because occasionally you've had to remind us of certain things, and that's been nice. So thanks for your time.
Well, I said to Councilman McAtee last year how much it meant to have him, and I'll say that again from a personal standpoint, how much we really appreciate the devotion that you brought to this task and what it's meant to all of us to have you at those subcommittee meetings and to serve with us here. And I think we have a good process in place that allows the council to be a part of our deliberations, and as Sue has already said it, oftentimes that's not, sometimes it's needed to keep us moving in the right direction. So, Gary, we really appreciate what you have done to help us this year. And I don't want to scare you, but Councilman McAtee is here today. I mean, once you get in this, you just can't get out of it. I mean, they just...
He's probably oversighting what I've been doing, making sure I didn't ruin anything.
Any other comments by the board? Well, we thank you for your service, and we'll look forward to having Councilman Pat Ryan come. Anything else by board members? Eric, anything else from the staff? Well, finally, then, we have an opportunity for citizens that are here to offer any comments. Anyone here have anything to offer to the advisory board today? Well, then, it looks like if the city manager comes, it's time to adjourn. We're adjourned.